Now to a child safety alert. This year alone, we have already seen several incidents where children or teens were either hurt or killed in possibly preventable accidents. Last month, this 17-year-old was killed when the car he was in crashed along Longleaf Pine Parkway in St. Johns County. Investigators say he was not wearing a seatbelt and was thrown from the car. Joining me now this morning, Cynthia Dennis from SafeKids of Northeast Florida with really some advice on how, as parents and just even as families, we can help and perhaps even prevent serious injury or deaths in not just teenagers, but also our young children as well. It's such an important reminder. Good morning to you, Cynthia. Thanks for being here. Let's start with the message that parents need to be giving their teenage drivers.
Well, as you mentioned, the most important thing is teaching them to buckle up. Every ride, every car, every time, forever. And, you know, we have the best chance to do that when they're young, to make it a habit. But, you know, start at any time. That's the most important thing. Also, make sure you spend time with them when you have a young teen driver, talking about things like putting their phones down when they're driving, talking about obeying the speed limits, and following the rules of the road.
And you've got to lead by example, particularly when it comes to the cell phone in the car. I mean, I catch myself sometimes too. My kids are in the back seat. I'm like, all right, you know, once I get in the car, I got to put it away, put it in the glove box, put it in your purse, do something with it. Because if they see you doing it, how do you say, hey, don't you do it?
That's right, and it's such a habit, so it's really important to model that for them.
Now, we've also seen we saw two teenagers who were killed in accidents, one in Duval, one in St. Johns County, another seriously injured in St. Johns County just in the last 2 months, so that's why it's so important to give that message. And then also we've got some video of the accident that happened. This one here was on Sunbeam Road last month. A 7-year-old died and 3 children were hurt. And again, you know, when your kids get out of that first initial car seat, I think that it sounds to me like parents make a lot of mistakes, not necessarily in this accident, don't get me wrong, but in general as a reminder about which car seats they need to use, particularly those booster seats. What are the rules and guidelines for that?
Right. Well, there's really a lot to know. And the most important thing I think to keep in mind as far as your a little bit older children is that they're safest in a 5-point harness as long as you can keep them in one. So when you're doing your shopping, look for a car seat that has a higher harness weight and higher harness height so they can stay in there longer before you move them into a high back booster seat. So even though the booster seat box might say that it's appropriate for a 4-year-old that weighs 40 pounds, a lot of 4-year-olds are still behaviorally too wiggly to just be in a booster seat that doesn't provide as much restraint. So that's really a good safety rule.
And there's also some specifics, and I have to tell you, when I registered and was going to buy car seats, particularly for my second child, you need to plan to spend a lot of time in the car seat aisle. And the reason is because it can get confusing. You've got to look at the side, and so there are some rules, we just had it up on the screen, that you should not, that your child should be in a booster seat up till 4'9". And also, what was the pound? It was up to 100 pounds. I mean, I just took my 9-year-old out of a booster seat to just give some perspective in terms of safety.
Yeah, that's pretty typical. It's somewhere between 8 and 12, usually before a child fits into a seat belt, before they need some kind of a boost. So till they're 4'9", till they're 80 to 100 pounds, till they can sit up straight and maintain that position. Their knees need to bend at the end of the seat, and that seat belt, most importantly, needs to fit them. So the lap belt needs to stay down across the top of their thighs and go across their chest.
And that's there for a reason, because we know that children who are not in booster seats and are too young to be in a seat belt have been seriously hurt abdominally and even in their neck because of car crashes. Hot car deaths. You just can't leave the kids for any reason whatsoever, for any amount of time alone in a car, particularly the young ones, at least kids who can't get themselves out if they get into trouble.
Right. So every year we lose an average of about 38 children in the United States, and there's literally thousands of near misses. And we talk about this a lot in the summer, but it's not confined to the summer months. We've already had 2 deaths in Florida this year, one in January, one in February. Doesn't have to be that hot outside for the inside of the car to heat up to lethal temperatures for a child.
And we're talking in 10 minutes, the inside of a car can heat up to like 110 degrees?
Well, 10 minutes it heats up 19 degrees, so from whatever your starting point is, and within an hour it heats up 43 degrees. So 107 is a lethal temperature for a car, and It can get that way in mild temperatures. It can get to 110.
Yeah, take the time, bring the child out with you. Even if the child is sleeping, it's okay to wake them up because at least they're alive.
And create reminders. That's a lot of times, over half the time, a child is just forgotten, and it tends to be the little ones that are rear-facing and fall asleep. So we have to do something. First of all, just get in the habit of always checking the back seat before you lock up. And then what some people do is put a stuffed animal in the seat when their child's not in the car seat, and then when the child's in the car seat, they move it to the front seat as a reminder.
Also put a shoe, a purse, a bag, a cell phone or something next to that child in that rear-facing seat so that when you get out, you typically would remember to grab those things. And I think that the most important thing that we have talked about in that also is that just call your daycare, call the school, whatever, and if your child has not shown up at a certain time, they need to call you and let you know. Give them that ability.
That's true, and it should be a practice. Anytime somebody else takes your child somewhere, always call and make sure they got there safely.
Cynthia, great information, very important information that also is going to be available to the public this weekend on Saturday out at the Jacksonville Zoo. I want to give everybody that information also. You can learn a whole lot more because it is Safe Kids Day at the zoo. It's going to be at the Great Lawn. Fantastic, all sorts of fun events and educational events too for the parents.
And all these different injury areas, so a lot of teaching for the kids and for the adults.
So 9:30 to 1 o'clock on Saturday. I'll be out there at noon also, bringing my kids as well. We will post this interview also with all of this great information that Cynthia gave us later this morning on the morning show page. And we hope to share, we hope you'll share it then with your friends later today as well. And we hope to see you this Saturday out at the zoo.